this meeting to order. It is now 7:08 p.m.
Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Ali,
Present.
Commissioner Dillard,
Here.
Commissioner Traore,
Here.
and Commissioner Gatherwa.
Present.
And let me unmute the people, and then Commissioner Daniels. We're taking roll call, sorry. No, she's present. So,
All right. Next is the reading of the land acknowledgement. We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of the Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was once within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk. And because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossessed indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work toward equity, restoration, and reparations. All right. Next is the approval of meeting minutes from April 7th. Motion to approve.
Second that motion.
it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the April 7th meeting date. Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel, can't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Gatherwa,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
and Commissioner Traore,
Yes.
and Commissioner Dillard.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Perfect. Next is public comment of items not on the agenda. The TRC members will not engage in discussion with the public concerning said items. If there's anyone who's on Zoom that wants to make a public comment about an item not on the agenda, now would be a good time to raise your hand. Redmond?
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. I can play it off of here.
You hear me?
Not that
Good.
loud.
A little bit.
Everyone stay away from the mic.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, if I'm coming through, I just wanted to let the commission know, and I know it's a late email to Stephanie, but I've asked her to share a link for those who may not be familiar or have had the opportunity to see the report that was done in Davenport, a disparity study report that was done in Davenport some years ago. It is on the Status of African American Commission website. So I shared that link and invite members to kind of look at that study. Not necessarily exactly what the TRC is doing, but it is at least an example of another Iowan community that has taken the time to study social justice issue. And and the end product of that body of work and energy. So I happen to have been involved in that pretty in depth, and would be very happy to share those experiences just as a reference point as the commission moves forward with its work.
Thank, oh. Thank you so much. Do we have anyone else on Zoom or from the public that would like to address the commission?
All right. So sounds like we are ready for the presentation from our lovely, lovely friends from Kearns and West, from Estige Planning, from Banjo Knits, from ThinkPeace, and that's right. That's all of them, right? No, Mediation Services, right? We're ready for you. Hang on one second. We're having some technical. Can you just meet that? We're having technical difficulties. We can't hear you outside of Mohammed's laptop for some reason. So we're gonna try to figure that out really quick.
You're genius.
Of course. Well, that wasn't to me, I don't think. Good evening, commissioners. Just double checking we're all good, that you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
Well, it's great to be with you all again. Just for a reminder, I'm Larry Schooler, a senior director at Kearns and West, a firm with expertise in facilitation and consensus building and work across the country. Honored as I was previously to be joined by Angie Jordan at Banjo Knits, Vfix at Estige Planning. I think Annie Tucker is with us from Mediation Services in the audience tonight. And I also am representing Eduardo Gonzalez, who is with ThinkPeace and is stationed in Mali at the moment. And so this time proved to be a little bit of a challenge, given that it might be the middle of the night, I believe. Anyway, it's great to be with you. My intention here, our intention here, is to do a very short recap presentation of the team. There's one addition, a trio of additions that we want to mention in particular, but we want to get straight to the point of tonight's meeting, which is to discuss a revised budget with you all. I want to emphasize at the start, this is a budget that is designed to ensure that we have enough resources to serve the needs of the TRC. It's kind of like, if you're familiar with government parlance, meant to be like a not to exceed amount, meaning we intend, as you know, to conduct a strategic planning and work planning workshop with the TRC if we are awarded the contract. And during that process and over the course of our work together, we can decide, I say we, meaning you all can decide how you would most like to have us serve you, and that can change. And we are only going to ask for fees associated with the work we do, not some sort of predetermined amount. And so as you look at this complex set of figures tonight, I just want you to bear in mind that what we're trying to do is ensure that we can complete the work, and hopefully as we advance through the work, we can find opportunities to just ensure prudence on the part of Iowa City and the TRC as we go. So I hope that that is helpful. I'm also available to provide additional details wherever needed. So certainly if you have questions that go beyond what I present to you, don't hesitate to ask me. Stephanie, I'm so sorry to ask you this, but I think I need your permission to share my screen. Thank you so much. Just confirming that everybody can see a slide. Okay, great. As you know, we are a pretty diverse and remarkable team, I think, just in the sense of the incredible array of talents and skills and experiences that we'll bring to this. We, as I mentioned, certainly have professional mediators and facilitators like myself who have worked almost exclusively in the public sector, in my case, for the last 15 years. We've also facilitated on very similar topics. I know that Chair Traore and I have a common friend in Elgin, Illinois, where I've been serving as the facilitator for the Community Task Force on Policing, one of the facilitators there. But we've also done a good bit of work in equitable and inclusive engagement across the country. We believe that we have within our group not just thought leadership on a national or international level when it comes to engaging the community, particularly in the form of ThinkPeace's experience with truth and reconciliation commissions around the world, but I think most importantly, local thought leadership, people who understand Iowa City much better than I ever could, and who can inform a strategy for engaging this community that really suits that community's needs and speaks to that community's values. We also have done specific work around policing and around racial equity on an array of other projects. We see our role in general as helping you all define and carry out your core vision, providing process and subject matter expertise, being third-party neutral facilitators who don't take positions on the topics you're discussing, but help you to formulate consensus recommendations for Iowa City, and also to help you all to identify and elevate community voices. And that goes back to the experience we have both with community engagement in general, specifically in Iowa City, and with truth and reconciliation commissions. We're trying to kind of do a 360-degree approach here and make sure that we have team members that can speak to all of that. Very, very briefly, as I mentioned, K&W is a national firm that does this kind of facilitation work and public engagement work around the country. I mentioned our experience. Just to reiterate, my personal experience includes a book-length piece on truth and reconciliation commissions in Greensboro, Maine, and Canada, due out later this year. And so I've got a particular interest in working with you all because of that subject matter expertise. And to just explain the way we fit into this, we would be in a project managerial role, helping to facilitate strategic and work planning and implementation of those, helping develop and facilitate, helping develop agendas and facilitate TRC meetings, be advisors when it comes to the fact-finding and truth-telling processes with the public, helping to train community members to be additional statement takers and receivers and facilitators, and helping to compile your all's work into a final report. So that's how we see our role. As I mentioned, Eduardo Gonzalez is unavailable, but he is, for those of you who don't know, a global, world-renowned expert in the field of truth and reconciliation. For many years served at the International Center for Transitional Justice. He's now affiliated with the Mary Hoke Center for Reconciliation at George Mason University, and ThinkPeace is an offshoot of that center with scholars and practitioners from around the globe who have worked directly on this kind of thing, including David Ragland, whose work was most prominently featured in Ferguson, Missouri, and the Ferguson, Missouri Truth Commission that convened after Michael Brown's tragic murder. The ThinkPeace role here is to really help to co-create a process for the TRC and focus more on the public processes that you all will undertake. So the sharing of testimony, the healing from trauma, societal participation, and so forth. So if you think of Kearns and West as kind of being your internal facilitators, ThinkPeace in some ways functions as part of our external facilitation team. Of course, we'll each be involved in each other's work in some way, just because of our experience with both kinds of things. But you could ask for no one more well-versed in truth and reconciliation events than Eduardo Gonzalez and the ThinkPeace team. And turn it over to Vfix Marias so that they can share a bit about SD.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. So SD Planning, we're here in Iowa City, and we are a local team, part of the local team. We're community and environmental planners, and we specifically focus on climate change impacts and racial and social justice. In the community, we do a lot of community work and primarily focusing on outreach and education. So as you can see here, we've worked with the University of Iowa for their campus safety action plan. We've also worked in Coralville, a little bit farther away, but not too far, for their flood resilience action plan. And we were prioritizing underestimated community members in that. So looking at folks who are already, food insecure, transportation insecure, understanding that when disasters hit, such as floods, derechos, COVID, that our community members are going to be most vulnerable to these impacts. So getting to school, getting to work, getting their children, taking care of their parents. And those are our community members, and we need to make sure that we're caring for them. So we also serve as racial equity consultants for a variety of nonprofits across the state, particularly looking at food system, affordable housing, and transportation. And our role here is really to hold the space for facilitation and dialogue, and also to assist in the design of outreach and engagement as local community partners. So looking forward to being a part of the team and working with you all, hopefully.
And thank you so much, V. I'll touch upon this again later, but I just want to emphasize the second to last bullet on V's slide referencing through facilitated dialogue. We've apportioned the budget in such a way that Astig, Banjonet's mediation services, and our 3 newest team members can directly assist with facilitation, not just be, boots on the ground logistical type folks, but can be, directly hands-on and, helping to complement or even supplant some of what we can offer in the space of facilitation, which is obviously so critical to the work here. So thanks, V. Over to Angie Jordan at Banjonet's.
Thanks, Larry. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, so Angie Jordan, Banjonet's Empowerment. Basically, I focus on community organizing and developing. I also work with entrepreneurial development, and I do instruction in knitting, which is a practice for mindfulness and patience. And for those of you who know me, know that I'm a lot about the South District, but really thinking about the South District and those events and those initiatives, those are all grassroots. So getting and prioritizing those, seeing the vision, having the dreams, but then figuring out action steps to actually accomplishing them. So that's part of who I am and what I bring to this. I'm super excited about the boots on the ground and the logistics and coordinating, but I'm also really, really excited to be part of the designing and implementation and facilitation processes. I feel like as a local person, that is already doing the work, this is a space where we can do it together as a team and bring more entities into the space to be doing this work together. So that's a little bit about me and what I'll be doing. And I don't know, Larry, is there anything else that I should be adding before we pass it over to Annie?
I think that you did great, Angie. I just want to make sure that we underscore the incredible asset that is the diversity market and the significance of that to this work. It's not like anything I've experienced in any of the communities that I've worked in, and it's so critical that we be thoughtful and innovative in how we invite people to participate in this process. It's not enough to just stick a piece of paper up on the bulletin board and say, y'all come. And so the fact that Angie's got this, incredibly innovative, strategy, if you will, is super important. So thanks, Angie. Turning to Annie Tucker, who I think is there in chambers to speak about mediation services.
Okie, thanks. So I think what I bring is being with people, either preparing them and being with them in hard conversations, and having in the prep work, giving them a chance to imagine saying what they want heard and what they want people to understand. So I bring that, and I've done other things, helped film and edit the White Privilege 101 film, like at 2 of the White Privilege conferences. We do restorative justice with youth, and then also are starting with adults. And that's where Angie and I did our first, we're together for the first circle that we were part of. We do circles also, or have been. I actually haven't done a circle since we did the November, December with y'all, some of you. And at some point, I don't know, Larry, is this the time to mention what we've been doing?
Annie, it could
Can you
be.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if I'm coming through now.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely wanted to keep you on the mic to talk about our newest teammates, but if there was more you wanted to say on your prior piece, please go ahead.
Okay, one more thing I'd want to say, and it's at the bottom of that slide, is that it may be that you feel like having a white woman involved or front facing is not appropriate, or at some point I feel that's the case. And then either way, I would just step down, because I think that what's really important from my point of view is that you guys are driving this process. And so that your best judgment is making decisions. As Larry said earlier, there's a budget with and things that are being offered, but you people are the choice points for what kind of processes you have, who's doing what. So I totally trust your judgment, and I just want to be upfront about that. Okay. So then I want to move on to thanking Sakawis. So she expressed the concern about non-native people providing circles as appropriation. And that's like a continental conversation, actually. So what she's done since then is connect us directly with 3 Iowa, well, one is Nebraska, but Native people who she trusted to talk with us about these issues. And to be honest, in the most recent conversation we had, she said that she and Lance, I'm just not forgetting his last name, were for non-native people not doing circles. Nonetheless, we talked with 3 other people that she suggested we talk with. And one is Danielle Wanati, who is right now in Des Moines doing an MMIW, Missing Murdered Indigenous Women event with Sakawis. And not to characterize what she said, I invited all of them and gave them the link, but nobody's able to come tonight. She, kind of in the spirit of her father, thought that being able to offer circles where people connect, and anyway, she thought that that would be something she wanted to be part of. Another person, Manape Lemaire, is experienced in doing different kinds of trauma healing work, which he told us stories about, and he would be very interested. He said, since where our teacher learned circles was from a tribe in the Yukon, he said, I think that we should make circles by Iowans, created by Iowans for Iowans. So he's interested in being part of that. And again, I'm not speaking for them, I'm just representing it. And ideally, you'll have a chance to be directly in contact with them. And then the last person is Terrence, and he said to call him T. Medina. He actually was able to, hang on. His grandson today, his 9-year-old grandson had emergency surgery on a ruptured appendix. So I offered if he wanted to say something that I could just read it. And so here's what he said. So this is T. Medina. I was just going to share with you and others that I've been running circles for many years, talking, listening, prayer, spirituality, and empowerment circles. And now most recently, a walking forward healing circle for those relatives going through grieving due to the loss of a loved one. My wife wrote this circle, and it is actually a 9-session class. Please feel free to share these words. I would be honored to serve. So since the 3 of them expressed interest in providing circles, specifically, we asked Larry to add them to the budget and give them the same number of hours that V and Angie and I have at the same rate of pay. And they were interested in that. So anyway, that's That's the update up till then. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Annie. I just want to hold space for the Medina family. Hearing that news was very saddening about T's grandchild, hoping for a complete recovery as speedily as possible. And thanks, of course, to Danielle and Manape as well. I'm very excited by the prospect of getting to team with them directly. This is a piece that we've shared with you before. As I've said, we are not just sort of professional facilitators being dropped into any sort of generic topic. This is a team for whom truth and reconciliation are core values. And this is more than just another project. It is a passion project. And as I've said, we have a team that very much wants to see their hometown and the region thrive through the work of the TRC and have the kind of lived experience and sustained connections across the city that we think really are an asset. So to the meat of the matter, sorry, vegetarians, to the heart of the matter. So this is a rundown of the ways in which we believe we can best serve the TRC's needs. I want to again emphasize that if anybody needs additional details, it's perfectly fine to ask. I'm happy to share them. I know that some of this may seem voluminous or expensive, and I guess what I want to say about that is, we, as you know, went through this process, of course, last year and came to a stopping point and got very clear guidance, got very clear direction, suggestion, you name it, to enhance our team in a significant way. And as Annie just mentioned, with the 3 circle leaders, as well as V's firm, Angie's firm, Annie's organization, and Eduardo's, we're bringing it all. We're bringing we're bringing the kitchen sink for you all at this. One of the things that is critical for you to understand about this budget is that when you look at that first bullet, strategic plan and work plan, all of this is subject to those things, right? So what I mean by that is we fully hope that the first action we could take, if you all are able to retain us, is to meet with you in a session that helps to devise a strategic plan and a work plan. That work plan is designed to guide all of the remaining activities that we may do. And so what we've done in this budget is make suggestions about the kinds of things we think you all might want to undertake, but you could get into that work planning process and decide we need 0 of that, we need a lot more of this, any number of different changes to it. So I would view this as preliminary in that respect. But one of the reasons that we need those kinds of resources is that, as some of you may know, having been through strategic and work planning, it's not a short process. It's not an easy process. It has a lot of moving parts. I'm working with a federal agency next week on their strategic plan, and it's incredible how many hours it takes to just get to the retreat, to the workshop, much less facilitate it and report out. Along with that, we anticipate a 12-month period of work with you all. And so that, combined with the amount of research that we think is important for us to do, not just to be educated about Iowa City, but to look at a variety of other paradigms for truth and reconciliation processes and so forth, that accounts for that level of spend. All of the members of the team would be involved in one form or another in that work. K&W would assume main responsibilities for project management, but certainly when it comes to participating in the strategic planning conversation, the work planning conversation, and research, we intend to tap our partners in part for that. The design of the public-facing fact-finding, truth-telling, and reconciliation process is one that will chiefly be led by Eduardo Gonzalez and his team at ThinkPeace, again with influence from the partners and K&W. But Eduardo has very carefully tailored a scope of work and budget to meet what he thinks are the core needs of this group, to really do enough assessment as well as customized recommendations so that what gets rolled out by this TRC is the best fit for this community and this organization. The next part is for the public events themselves. It is important to note that these are based on some assumptions about the numbers of events. The numbers that we chose, 4 large in-person events, 4 smaller circles, and 4 virtual circles, are reflective of what we think would be a way to reach a meaningful cross-section of the Iowa City community. So for example, with 4 events, you could picture weeknights as well as weekend events to appeal to different kinds of folks that want to come out at different times, for example. Some folks may feel fully comfortable being in person, others may prefer virtual for any number of reasons, so we certainly want to provide options. And then, as I mentioned before, the diversity markets are so crucial to not just enticing people to participate, but actually enabling them to engage within the market framework itself. You know, it's important to say here that when it comes to fact finding and truth telling, that doesn't just refer to someone coming up to a microphone and offering testimony. It also refers to being able to provide testimony with a statement taker in private, perhaps in writing, perhaps at an event, but off to the side. So it doesn't necessitate someone having to prepare an oration, but it does, in order to provide different options for how people share their truth, we need to make sure we have enough resources to do that. So that's what is encompassed under the fact-finding and truth-telling public process. The TRC meetings are like the one we're having right now. What we did in that space was we assumed that instead of meeting every 2 weeks, and again, this is entirely up to you and totally subject to change, but we thought about instead of a meeting every 2 weeks, that perhaps we could maximize efficiency by having 1 meeting per month. And I'll just share with you, I have another client that I'm traveling to where I come in on a Tuesday and I facilitate 2 evenings worth of meetings. And so in those 2 evenings, we often cover what it would have otherwise taken, 2 months worth of regular weekly meetings to cover. So this is just a proposed model, but what it does is it allows us to facilitate in person as well as keep the travel costs relatively managed. And I know that we have a number of local members of our team, and they certainly can play facilitative roles. We just wanted to make sure we had enough resources so that I and the other Kearns and West folks would be able to get there in person. And of course, we're happy to pivot to any virtual needs, either because of the pandemic or otherwise. But of course, we hope that you all can continue meeting in person for the most part. And then we have some budget and I'm sorry, the TRC meeting budget does include travel costs. And then under report compilation, it's fairly self-explanatory, but we see it as an important responsibility of ours to help you kind of craft the narrative that you're going to present, not just to the city council and the community, but generations to come. It certainly is intended to be a collaborative effort. We don't want to have any pride of authorship, but given how much of your time you're having to commit to just being commissioners at meetings, we want to be in a position to help by leveraging our writing skills and ability to compile information. So this again can be adjusted based on the desire of the commission, but we wanted to allocate resources to being able to draft that and to review it with you all and to make edits. So that gets us to a total budget of $584,000, almost $585,000, which is a significant increase from what we brought you when we initially proposed on this work. I firmly believe it is a better proposal, a better budget, and a better way for us to meet your needs as a commission, because when we initially proposed, I think we were chiefly thinking about just in-meeting facilitation and not the level of direct grassroots engagement across all communities that we believe that we can have now that we've assembled this incredibly rich team. I also want to mention that embedded in our budget is a set of resources so that myself, Eduardo, others at ThinkPeace can conduct training so that community members can then take on roles in statement taking, facilitating, and the like. The hope there is that they can not only serve the needs of the TRC in this initial 12 months, but they can perhaps be assets to the community for many years to come and bolster their skill set as an extension. They would, we think, benefit from being compensated. We didn't directly address that in this proposal because this refers to our service directly to you, but we'd certainly be open to discussing that with you. But we believe strongly in the value of a conversation core, CORPS, a group of people who go through some, basic training to then be in a position to help facilitate the dialogue that needs to happen. As large as our team is, we think that it would be greatly enhanced by the participation of community members. Just referring back to Annie's point earlier, this does include budget for the 3 circle facilitators to be intimately involved in all parts of this project and compensated, as Annie said, at rates equivalent to those used by Astig and Banjonitz and Mediation Services for about the same amount of time. And I think the last thing that I'll say for now before we take your questions is, again, these are resources that we're asking for as a what we think we need. We very much believe that this can be tailored as we get into the work plan process. And so if you feel a little bit daunted by this, we hope that you take it as a kind of a, I don't know, like an insurance, like let's have enough in place so that we can do what we need to do. And if we find that we, as commissioners or with other partnerships in the community, that we can do more of this work ourselves than we thought, that's fine. There will be no offense taken. There will be no hard feelings. We just want to meet your needs in whatever way we can. So I think that that's the extent of the overview I wanted to give you, and I'm obviously happy to take your questions. Oh, and let me just mention a couple of other assumptions. I'm sorry, the funding does just cover time as well as just the little bit of travel expense, but other expenses like supplies and venue rental would need to be accounted for elsewhere. It's a 12-month period of work. It assumes in-person meetings with Zoom option. You see there kind of the breakdown of our focus on TRC meetings, ThinkPeace focusing on public events, and then Astig, Banjonitz, and Mediation Services, along with our 3 circle facilitators, focusing on public events, circles, and additional support. And we obviously want TRC members to be involved in whatever way they like, and that those roles get defined clearly during the strategic plan and work plan development process. Last but not least, we are seeking the approval of this body to proceed to City Council. We would be working with city staff to develop a draft professional services agreement with a budget to then be reviewed by City Council. The goal would be to bring this to City Council on May 17th, and then if approved, let's be optimistic, when approved, the team will schedule a kickoff meeting with the TRC leadership and get started as soon as we possibly can. Thank you all very much for your patience, and please, happy to hear from you.
Okay, we're going to start with public comment from folks who are attending via Zoom. So if there's anyone in the attendance that has any questions for Kearns and West, Astig, for Mediation Services, Banjonitz, or ThinkPeace, now would be a good time to raise your hand.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Councilmember.
Hi, so my name is Megan Alter and I'm a council member. I have a question just to ask for sort of a little bit of more ballpark, I guess, detail yet ballpark about what potential or what possibilities there are for these larger fact-finding events. Can you give me a for instance on that, of what that might look like?
Absolutely, thanks for the question and thanks for your service, Councilmember. It's interesting because when you look at 3 of the biggest North American TRCs, Greensboro, Maine, and Canada, they all come at it in different ways. Canada's almost functioned like a bazaar, if you will, meaning that you had a room for someone to come before a microphone and cameras and give a very public statement. You had space where someone could meet very privately and offer testimony. You had rooms where people could gather, both of First Nations and not, to have sort of healing conversations around the horrific experiences of First Nations members in Canada. So sort of a reconciliation opportunity, or at least a truth receiving kind of opportunity, but in a small group setting. That was their approach. Maine did almost all of their work in testimony gathering in private and just saved public events for kind of the launch of the commission and then the reveal of their findings. Greensboro held 3 public hearings. Theirs were done with invited speakers from different sides of the particular tragedy they were exploring in 1979. And the testimony that they gave was either done for the first time there in public, or it was done as a kind of not a rehash, but a reiteration of what they had said privately. And typically they would make an opening statement and then open themselves up to questions from the commissioners. Sometimes they just came in and the commissioners asked them questions, and sometimes they just made a statement and didn't have question and answer. So that's a model. It's incredibly important that both Eduardo Gonzalez and David Ragland and others who have worked on these commissions elsewhere give a whole number of other examples of how it could look. But I think it certainly would be our goal to have events where anyone feels welcomed to participate in whatever way feels comfortable. And that does require certain resources like, childcare, supervised children's activities, interpretation in other languages, accessible buildings, resources for those who need any sort of accommodation. So there is a lot that goes into that, of course, but that's something we wanted to continue fleshing out with the TRC as we get into work planning. I hope that answers your question. I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know if I was muted automatically or not. So that was why my hand. And just as a follow-up, it sounds tremendous. And I guess this is sort of just something for apologize, not been in the meetings where there have been discussions. And so this might be rehashing things that
That's okay.
that the commission has already worked through and talked about with you as well as our local partners. But I know that one of the things is best laid intentions and in anticipation of getting a lot of people or having a whatever might be projected as a large event oftentimes falls short. And so I'm wondering, is there room within your thinking, and this is for the entire coalition, to scale downward and to think about incremental? I love that there is also for virtual events, there are smaller events planned as well. And the diversity market, I think that's ingenuitive and has a lot of promise for being able to also be a space for people to sort of veer off to the side and be able to do this process and to have a moment for themselves. But I guess I'm just concerned about within that budget, I'll be honest, about for large events when it takes an awful lot of work to get a medium-sized turnout or even a
Without
small
question.
turnout. Yeah, I guess I'm just saying, is there wiggle room in your budget to say, maybe we really don't need all this money because we may not have, it might be better to do smaller events and not
Yes.
and not plan for 4 big ones. So I'll be quiet now.
Honestly, Councilmember, I could give you a longer answer, but the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay.
And there's not much more I need to say. I mean,
Gotcha.
we really hear that loud and clearly. Again, Maine encountered that exact thing. The state of Maine's Wabanaki TRC encountered that exact issue relative to attracting testimony givers to events for a variety of reasons. And so they pivoted and they leveraged their resources to focus on privately taken testimony and other kinds of outreach. And so we can do with this whatever we like. We just wanted to make sure that we had allocated enough resources in the event that a large-scale event was of interest, or that multiple large-scale events were of interest. We could also pilot one event, see how it goes, decide we want 2, 3 more, or that we want to switch entirely. The budget can accommodate any of that kind of permutation.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Is there anybody else in the Zoom audience that has a question? Doesn't look like it. Anyone here have questions? Counselor Burgess.
I'm going to be allowed to ask questions. Yes. Hello, my name is Laura Burgess, member of the
Hey.
City Council. Hi,
Councilor.
Larry. So good to see you.
You as well.
So good to see all of you in person. Really great to be here. So I just wanted to reflect on a couple of things, and maybe, I don't know that there's answers for this, but when the City Council approved the first budget and then declined to approve the contract, I think we kind of moved forward with the understanding that what would be coming back before us would be comparable. And so I was kind of, I'll be honest, I was a little shocked to see something, almost 3 times the scope. Now, hearing what it entails, it sounds like, very, very, very reasonable, very prudent. If we think of the size of what we're tackling and trying to undertake with this, it makes very good sense to me. But when we talk about the expertise that's being brought to bear, both internationally, nationally, and locally, and the scope of the events and kind of the training to allow community members to go forward, I'm just struck that this sounds better than any of the other examples that Larry, you or other experts have been able to describe to us, which is very exciting for us. But what is it about Iowa City that makes this the right project, the right place, the right time to undertake something that meaningful and significant?
Such an interesting question, Councilmember. I'll do my best, but I would defer to V, to Angie, to Annie, being residents. I mean, from my perspective, the other commissions have often been born, as many of you would know, out of a level of horror and tragedy that is sort of unthinkable to me. The idea, for example, in Greensboro, that 5 anti-Ku Klux Klan protesters could be gunned down on essentially live television in front of children in their homes living in Morningside Heights. It's just unthinkable. Of course, today it's sadly not, but at that time, I think it really was an unthinkable horror and revealed so many other wounds that existed there. Maine and Canada both deal with the maltreatment of Indigenous, Native American, and First Nation folks, and I'm sure people are familiar with these, quote unquote, residential schools in Canada that were certainly not that, and that cultural and physical genocide occurred. I think that Iowa City is certainly grappling with extraordinary pain and trauma. What I think is interesting is the ability in this case to be a little bit proactive in addressing some of the issues that face the community, and not to have to do it in the midst of some sort of crisis or some sort of, I don't know, kind of societal earthquake, but to do it in the context where we can deliberate on these things. We can tap into our memories without, fear of some instant calamity. I know that our world is very unpredictable these days, but I also think that Iowa City has taken this step in a way that virtually no other community around the country has. There are, of course, other TRCs that have been convened, and I'm watching them fairly closely, and few, if any, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, have been moving as far along as you all have. And I think it just speaks to the investment that's there of social capital to do this well. And so I'd like to think that with the level of support that the city of Iowa City has granted, which is also different than Greensboro, and the amount of commitment from your commissioners, all of whom are there locally, which is unique, I think you're very well positioned for success. But let me go back to V and Angie and Annie for anything additional.
I would also add into that, and maybe a lot of this is echoing, what Larry's saying, but just from my perspective, when Eduardo came into the scene and I learned more about what all he does, I had that same question, like, why are you here, bro? You got this is, and what I understood him saying was this is a very unique ecosystem that this is happening in Iowa City, and wow, if it's successful, how it can template out. And again, for me, that kind of rang familiar with the neighborhood work that we do, that a lot of, it seems like the city is looking to the South District to template out things that are happening. And I think too of all the resources in Johnson County and how sometimes we're not always on the same page. We don't always have a same goal. And so for me personally, this work aligns us very organically to come together. And it excites me because I think we're going to be able to bring so many more entities that are doing parts of the work. We're going to bring them together so we're all doing all the work. And so that's something that I would just kind of bring into this conversation about why here, why now. And I'm just throwing it over to V or Annie to see if they have more.
Yeah, thank you for that. And such a great question. You know, I think also to echo what Angie had said about when we talked with Eduardo and wondering, yeah, why aren't you here? Like, what is about this that you find unique? And some of his response was really, you know, Iowa in the landscape of American culture is often looked to in the heartland as, you know, a place where things, you know, where possibility could happen. I mean, if you look at politically speaking, you know, a lot of you know, the caucuses or whatever you want to call it, like we get a lot of attention. And his point was, if Iowa City can do this, then it really does give hope, I think, to a lot of other places in America, just given where Iowa is positioned. And I think also a conversation that we had last week with Manape has really struck me and stayed with me. So many of the things that he shared were deeply moving. And one of them that he shared was his own thoughts and feelings about how, when you look at the Midwest, how absent Native Americans are, and the real trauma and massacres and exportation of people and culture that doesn't really exist on the landscape because, you know, people were moved to the West and forced from their homes and other atrocities. And so he felt like, you know, Iowa is really well positioned to do some of that healing, and we have an opportunity here to do that, unlike, you know, other places in America. So that really resonated with me as well. I just thought I would share that. Obviously, it's not, he's not saying it, but that's what I got from that. So.
So why here right now? Why now? Well, for one thing, George Floyd was killed and there was Black Lives Matter, and this was a request, and the city council said they would do it. And for another, I think every person of color who's a friend of mine has had something very hard and or unjust, not just one, happen to them, and in this town. And not necessarily fully acknowledged by the public or by the people in power. So it's like, why the heck not? Like, that's what's happening here. It's not someplace else. It's right here. And think of yourself or people that you know for whom this is true. For whom this is true. A kid on a hot day, a young Black kid walking to his grandmother's from Coralville to Pheasant Ridge, stopped by a policeman saying, "Why are you sweating? Are you running from something? Did you do something?" A kid going to see his grandmother. That's the least of what I can tell you. So seriously, you gave permission for it. It's what needs to happen every place, and we get to do it here. So that's why.
Thank you, Counselor Burgess. Right. Okay. Does anyone else have a comment to make in the public? Daphne, if you have any questions or comments for the team, now would be a good time to go over them.
And Vice Chair Ali, before you go there, Mr. Jones
Oh.
on Zoom had raised his hand as well.
Oh, sorry, I can't see that very well. Sorry, Daphne. I redact that statement. Redmond.
Thank you. Larry, I was just curious, with all the different experiences that you've had with Truth and Reconciliation commissions and efforts, have you seen some of the outcomes after, let's say, a successful process, which you probably couldn't say, is there ever a successful process, or is it ever complete? But
right.
Typically, you know, you like to get to a certain point where there's recommendations, and typically we are talking about a policy making board. So there may be policy recommendations, maybe there's program recommendations, things that, you know, require, you know, some resources.
Sure.
Is there some examples out there of of processes that have generated such activities, and if there are any examples of how they're doing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones, for the question. The best resource I can point you to would be some work being done by the CBC in Canada. CBC is sort of like NPR up there. And the CBC has a website called Beyond 94, which is a reference to the 94 calls to action that were made by the TRC in Canada. And if you go to the website, which I suppose I could do a very quick screen share of here, you'll see that they, as a news organization, have been very carefully tracking the extent to which the TRC's calls to action have come to pass. As you can see, 13 of the 94 are complete, but another 29 have projects underway, others have projects proposed, and others are not yet started. But the Prime Minister of Canada has devoted significant resources in the form of dedicated personnel and the like to carrying out their work. The recommendations in Greensboro are noteworthy in that regard because Greensboro identified a number of economic undercurrents to what took place in 1979, essentially that Black textile workers were unionizing, which posed a threat to some members of the Klan. And so as they did their work, they came to believe that major economic change was needed in Greensboro. Sure enough, the Greensboro City Council later approved their recommendation to provide a fair living wage to all of its employees. And I believe it applied both the city of Greensboro and Guilford County, which was a major step forward, particularly for a southern city to do something like that. There also was a marker erected at the site of the incident, which, believe it or not, hadn't existed. And there were official apologies and acknowledgments made by the city, which were a long time coming. The city was found liable by a civil court of wrongdoing because the police didn't prevent the violence. So there are tangible recommendations that these commissions have made that have been implemented. Maine's commission is most notable for, I think, changes to processes by which Native children are managed within the state's child welfare system. So their changes are both more subtle and more significant, if you will. So not necessarily an ordinance, a piece of law, but a change in how social workers and other professionals are ensuring that children from Native tribes are protected, that the tribe's interests are protected, and so on. So the examples are many. I'm happy to send you a report if you need some help falling asleep that I wrote about this, but it's very much empirically true that these commissions make recommendations that then see the light of day and don't just attract dust on a shelf.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Daphne.
Vice Chair, she's put something in the chat.
Oh, perfect.
So if it's okay, I'll just read it.
Yeah.
She says, I have two questions. One, will the community be able to provide feedback after each event? If so, will that feedback help shape future events? I'm pretty sure Daphne hacked into my computer. That's exactly what I do for every single project. It's critical to do that. And that speaks, I think, also to Council Member, I think it was Bogus's point. We don't want to do an event that doesn't attract the attention we want it to, and then try to keep repeating something that isn't working. And so absolutely, we would keep the community's feedback top of mind over the course of the process to make sure not just that the event was of the type that they wanted, but did they get something out of it? Did they feel it was well orchestrated? What would they change? All of that stuff would be very much critical, integral, not optional. So that would be my answer to that question. And then I think she had a second. I'm not sure if she wanted to type it.
We answered both at the same time.
Yeah, I see the one question in the chat. Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I actually just have one question. I'm fighting a nasty cold, so.
Oh, poor thing.
So yeah, I'm sorry. I only have one question. But thank you so much.
Of course, no problem. Oh, that was two questions in one. I see now. Definitely feel better. I've been there recently. I think Councilmember Alter re-raised her hand, so maybe. It's so ironic because I live in Texas and my city council member is council member Alter. Just a different Alter. I don't know if she needs to be added as a, there she is. Council member?
There we go. So I have a nuts and bolts question, actually. Within the budget breakout, you had a roughly 181,000 for the TRC meeting. So
Yes.
and as you mentioned, it would be sort of, you had a comparison to, other ones where you were there, you were able to condense weekly meetings into 1 month and et cetera, and there would be travel expenses. Nevertheless, in sort of saying that these start in a month, it seems that it breaks out to about $15,000 per month for your facilitation. Is that accurate? Can you flesh that out for me
Thanks.
about
No, I
what that
appreciate you
entails?
asking. I appreciate you asking me
I
that.
will
So,
say that's pretty hefty,
yes,
especially given that there's, we have I'm sure that TRC perhaps has filled you in, but there's a backstory of our commissioners. Every commission works voluntarily. And so I would just like you to explain a little bit about the 15K that would go into facilitation, recognizing as well that there are travel expenses. Nevertheless,
sure.
Like that's separate from all of the other activities that you've actually enumerated. So.
Yes, thanks, Councilmember. So that figure comes from a couple of different things. One is, on almost every project that I do, with limited exception, there are at least two of us who facilitate, because we just believe that, even if I'm doing a great job, I'm my own single person and with my own background, and a second person often has enormous value just by having a different set of life experiences and skills. And so it does contemplate two facilitators. It also contemplates, as I mentioned, the full attendance of Angie, V, Annie, as well as our 3 circle facilitators at all meetings. Now, again, that may become not something that is feasible, or something that they would rather repurpose their efforts in a different part of the work, but we wanted to make sure that we had allocated enough so that they could all be there for all of the meetings. And we also assumed a 2-day, a 6-hour meeting split out over 2 days. So in other words, a total of 72 hours of meeting time spread out over those 12 months. And again, it could prove to be less than that. We could decide, wow, we met for much longer and we don't need to meet for a little bit. That could change, but that cadence has worked for me elsewhere. And then there's obviously some hours just for agenda development and revision and consultation with the team, and the preparatory work and the follow-on that goes into facilitating meetings effectively. So that's where that comes from. There would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 people when you include, actually 8 when you include our 3 local partner organizations, the 3 circle facilitators, and then myself and a colleague. And so that's why it's a little bit high there.
Thank you. That helps.
Sure.
Okay, I think we're just gonna go to members of the commission that are here in person, and then if anyone comes up with any other questions, just put them in the chat, and we'll try to look through them. But let's start with Eric and work our way down. Is that okay? So you,
I got something to say. Go ahead.
or do you want to start on that end?
Yeah, well, somebody got something to say down there. They can go.
I'm just thinking of going in order necessarily. That's just all I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. This is Commissioner Harris. So I'm going to say, first of all, at this point, if there was a vote for this, I would vote no. And the reason being is half of this gentleman's conversation was about expenses, and the concerns about how much money, $15,000. That's a lot of money. We do our job, ad hoc job, we do it for free. So if I went home and I had a past due light bill before I came here, when I get back done with this meeting, my light bill is going to be past due still. That doesn't change anything. And so it's hard to listen to the amount of money that is going to be spent. Now, we have a debate thing that's going on in this county and in this city about excluded workers. Now, if the city would be willing to dish out that amount of money, but they can't help the people that need money that suffer, I can't vote for it. That's just my thing. When I came to this meeting today, I had to make sacrifices to make sure that my children and my family were fed and okay. When I'm supposed to sit here for a couple hours or 2 or 3 hours and listen about how you're going to pay somebody $15,000 a month, I just can't. And I love some of the people that we have presenting these things. It's just that I wouldn't feel right without voicing my opposition. I'm just opposed to it. And it's just been a long time coming and a long process about getting a budget and getting a facilitator. It's been a long thing. But the one thing that they leave out is about what the commissioners do. Do they want to be compensated? Do they want to get anything? And it's all about everybody else getting paid off of the work that we do. And I don't want people to be mad at me about how I feel about it, but I just can't let it go past. And it's difficult. And it's been difficult for a long time. And I was hearing mentioned that, hey, you try to go to the city and this is the second or third time you try to get a facilitator. Well, we all know why we haven't had a facilitator, because of the hard work of our chair when he tried to bring in the part about people getting stipends. And that's why we've been stalled. It's not about who it is or what it is. We had it all in place. We voted on it and they denied it because it has something about stipends in there. How long do we have to be commissioners until we are respected? How long? And that's it.
And before you guys respond, I want to say that,
You can't do that.
well, I just wanted to say
You
that
have to respond to what I said.
part
You
of
can't
their
do that.
position
Guys,
is to
let's not do that right
actually,
now.
Yeah, you
part
can't
of
do
their
that.
position is to help us figure out how to talk to the council about the budget and stuff. Like that is part of their job, is to help us
But I want him to
strategically
respond to my
plan.
question without you putting extra input.
All right. Oh, we're not doing that right now.
Yeah, we're not doing that. She can't.
No, to both of you. This is to both of you. This is to
Yeah.
both of you. We're not doing that right now.
Got you, bro.
We're not doing that right now.
But he needs to respond to what I said in my statement. Not her
Understood,
putting in her 2
understood,
cents on
understood,
it.
understood. But we can't do the talk back between us right now.
Got you.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm just asking for the right to have him respond to what I said, not her put her 2 cents in what I said. That's it.
Understood, understood.
That's all I'm
I
asking.
just don't want to do this publicly right now.
I got you.
Thank you.
But that's not fair, so.
All right, and then, so. Just want to make sure, is this a comment rather to steer us on to this topic or rather to reply to what he said? Just want to make
Exactly.
sure we go correctly.
That would be to steer on the comment.
Go ahead.
Part of their position is to help us strategically plan how to put together a budget, because the council did not like the budget that we put together last time. We've discussed that with Kyle Vince specifically at like one of your first meetings, the time that you spoke to us in regards to his position in helping us because of the work that he did. And you'll probably have to correct me, Larry, when he was a student at the University of Iowa in regards to equal pay and stuff. But I do remember that being something that you guys were dedicated on helping us plan and strategically plan how to ask council, how to make a budget that actually represents something that's feasible that they can look at.
That's not what I.
Before we continue with the commissioner comments, I think it might be best if we just establish a protocol of rather if we will all speak before we have replies from the facilitator group, or if we would rather each speak and get replies from the facilitator group.
Exactly. And I add on your, what you want to put in there.
Before we continue, let's decide as a group which route we would like to take.
Motion.
I would like that we all speak respectfully and wait for everyone to listen, to hear from our guests so that we can get our questions answered. And I would
Exactly.
really appreciate it, please, if other council members do not speak over each other. Thank you.
Exactly. I would say that I waited a long time to say what I had to say.
Okay, so Eric,
And
I'm
I
going to
didn't
ask
interrupt
you,
anybody.
you've
And
been interrupting us.
no,
So-
I haven't said a word for the past
Okay.
hour. So I've been sitting here waiting to say what I want to say. And
Eric?
when I say what I
All
want
right,
to
right
say,
now, I just have to say, as
Commissioner
current
Harris.
chair of the commission, I don't want to be the person to ever do this. But I would like to decide right now, the way we're going to do this, each of us speak, we get all the way through, and then we take the comments from them. Because that's what's going to help best. I
Right,
do not
and
want this back and forth.
I
So
got you.
next-
So I'm gonna
next
say the
we-
only
next
thing
we
that I was
have-
saying, the only thing I was
you
saying, the
had
only thing I was
spoken.
saying is that everybody else talked, and I wanted to get a reply from a person from my comment, not nobody else adding
Understood.
on what they're saying to
Understood.
reply to my comment. And that's upsetting me because that's not fair. And the person that did that know what they was trying to do. So that's all I'm saying about it.
Understood. I hear you.
And she can reply
And-
after
and-
he responds to
Okay,
what I said.
we will all speak first, and then they will reply to all of us, okay? So you will get your reply.
So why did she have to? Okay,
That was said before we established this protocol.
I got you. I'm gonna say another word.
So next we have
that's it.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, I am just taking this in, that's all, doing some thinking. And I would like us to not make this emotional. There's a lot of emotions that stir up, but every time that happens, we get stuck. And it doesn't make sense. If we keep shooting ourselves in the foot, we're not going to get anywhere. A response, I don't mind it personally myself, one at a time. Keep an order with it. It makes sense. As of right now, what I'm looking at here, when it comes down to the budget, it's not something that we would spend all of that money for. Is that correct to say?
Elaborate. What do you
Meaning,
mean? Like the 584.
the 584, we're not looking to spend this out completely, correct? This is just kind of saying this is where it would stop.
No, that would be the payment for all of everything that they just discussed that they would be providing. So like strategic planning, helping us with the report, everything on the slides before that.
But we don't have
Vice
to
Chair, Commissioner Johnson's correct. If I may just quickly interject, you're correct that it's meant to be a not to exceed amount, Commissioner, meaning that it's a ceiling. We may find that we are needed in a much different way than we've envisioned in this budget, meaning fewer events or fewer facilitations or what have you, in which case the ultimate cost would be much lower.
So at the end of the day, we can cut this down completely. And then cutting this down
This
completely,
question got responded to. How about?
and then cutting this down completely,
I couldn't get my question, but I was like putting extra stuff in my question. It's not fair.
and cutting this down completely, or cutting this down at least in pieces would make it a lot easier for us to just kind of set up a structure and try to implement a structure, correct? If that's the case, only other question I would have is, do we honestly believe that the city is going to back us up on this situation? That's pretty much where I sit with it.
And now your turn.
I've attended all of these meetings. I know what they're asking for. You can go ahead.
Okay, this is Commissioner Dillard. First, I want to thank everyone for explaining this to us tonight. I do have several questions, just because just reading this, as our council member Laura Burgess said, this is a shocking number. It is triple the amount. I definitely am in support of this is what you all think we need to do, but I would love to know little bit more of an itemized, if you could itemize each different section. Like I know you already explained to us the TRC meetings. I'd love to know a little bit more about the fact finding, why that number is 161,000. And I know that we got a late handout that I did not see that has a little bit more.
No,
detail.
that's not a late handout. It's the example of the last agreement
Okay,
that
go through it.
council chose not to approve from Kearns and Rest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
I still would definitely love to just hear more about like how many people are we expecting? Are you hoping to have attend the larger versus the smaller? I think these are questions that people in the community are going to ask. And people at council are going to ask. This is a large number, and even if I am in support of it, I think it makes sense to have more clarification on what all of these numbers truly mean.
Sure.
So,
actually, before you
Mr.
go,
Chairman,
wanna
I
make
just want
sure-
to make sure Commissioner Harris knows I'm more than happy to answer his question whenever the time is right. I apologize for missing that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, just for myself, once again, I know we keep hearing the dollar amount high and this, but again, we did add more people to the facilitated group as well with the original facilitated proposal that Kearns and West had brought. That timeline was again shorter than the current one. This timeline has been extended, has become longer. And from what I understand, that essentially gives us the opportunity to do more work and address more people with that work. So if we're expecting that, that would mean that this would be a higher dollar amount. On top of that as well, as I remember it, inflation rates are pretty high right now. So whatever that money was worth last year, not worth that amount now, meaning you need to pay, I think it's like 7% or so, like that currency inflation. It's around 13% dating back to 2020, but regardless, very high. I bring up the 2020 number because that was the year that City Council actually passed the $1 million for this. 13% inflated away. That means that money is actually worth around $870,000 right now. So longer we do this whole thing and keep dancing around, the more that money just deflates. It just goes away and away and away and away and away. And it doesn't go to anyone in this community. Whereas their money is being inflated away. Their housing costs are going up. They're having all these issues in the schools, like how, we have some people still continuing to say choice words to other students in these schools, causing them to not ever want to go to that school again, etc. We have a lot of problems around here. Everyone knows that. At least everyone in this room, I would hope. We keep talking about how we don't know how many people in the community will show up, and we're afraid of who will show up, who will not. That is something I am not even willing to entertain in terms of a conversation, because here we are, and I don't believe not nearly enough has been done for the media attention for the actual work that this commission is trying to do. And we're talking about how we're worried about people showing up. We haven't even shown people who we actually are, what we're actually trying to do, the points we're actually trying to convey. So how are we just going to assume that we're going to have small numbers that attend? If this city is going to talk about how progressive it is, how liberal it is, how together everyone is, how diverse we are, then it's shameful in the same breath for us to be able to sit here and think that people wouldn't show up to these things. Because that means that everything we think about this place is completely false. And if that's the case, then a Truth and Reconciliation Commission is needed and is necessary and has been. And if that again is the case, the $584,000, what worth it in my mind, at least? I would rather have that than people sitting here, growing up, hating the place they live because they hate going to school because of the way they're treated. The way they're treated not only by potentially their teachers, but their classmates, people around their town, officers in the town, etc., whatever it is. We need to remember that this is not just about the money that gets spent now. This is about the effect that it has for generations to come. And also remember that in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, because of how inflation works, that $584,000 will not seem like that much at all. Let's remember what the actual goal is: healing. What is the dollar value that you all put on that? With that, I yield.
This is Commissioner Wangui for the record. And if I were to vote right now, if I were to take a vote, for our facilitator proposal, I would vote yes. And I'll go backwards and say I'm at the point where when I started this process, and this is me, where when I went to the council and they were discussing where I should be a commissioner, one of the things I offered is I am trained at the University of Iowa to be a researcher. And one of the things I research in is social injustice, racism, discrimination. And I also teach that specifically to counselors. I'm a licensed counselor in Iowa, particularly to our school counselors. So one of the things when I started, and I've shared this publicly, is I have never done a Truth and Reconciliation Commission work. And when I go to the field, one of the things I want is a framework to work with. Fast forward, a year later, working through this process of looking for a facilitator. Thank you, Dr. Skona, because you led Kans and West and Gonzalez and the whole team. I got clarity and my framework that I want. The in-between, something else that we have been working on this. I think we took, the other thing I'd vote yes. Kans and West is here. I voted for them way back before we took the proposal to the city council. I'm thinking September 21. I could be wrong on the date, but we took it to them and they took it back to us. So even after working with the whole team more and in a more involving manner, and even me researching into their work, it confirmed my vote, which was more going with I think you presented once or twice, once to us and to the council. Now I have engaged, and also thank you, City Council. I've taken a course for the last 7 weeks, which has made me, as Dr. Skona, you were talking about Greensboro, I went through that trauma and the triggering and the pain of listening to that work, Wanabaki, and also the TRCs that have been there in the world, and also really even crying and even have to handle that as one of those justice and truth reconciliation is my own in my own country, Kenya. So that is also part of the example of the work that's still going on, because all those TRCs you're talking about, even the one that's also going on, the task force in California, the work is not done. I'm still saying that having engaged, and also between, I think, December 16th, when we broke off, we got sent back by the council that there wasn't local involvement in the facilitation process. And a lot of work was being done. And I think some communication wasn't there, because I publicly said there's some places I'm lost on bringing on our local organizations, but there are organizations that I know they're there in the community, and mediation services. I've always worked with Annie in my work coordinating domestic violence in Eastern Iowa. So I got to engage as we were moving forward and asking all the questions about the budget. I'm not in finance, that's not my area. But engaging with it and engaging with the bodies that are making our facilitator. So having done that and asked my question, even the question Councillor Burgers was asking, of reminding ourselves, what are we doing? Why are we here again? What rationale is this TRC based on? And having those questions answered, I thank you very much for because all the expertise and all the work that has gone in getting us to that point. People, we have been very thoughtful in learning and getting to that point. And for me, seeing this framework coming together, it has not been easy. We fought and others have cried even here publicly or in private because it's painful work and it's going to be painful and we are not going to end it. So for me, again, what I'm saying in very many words, thank you. Our pieces that are making our facilitator, Kansan West, ThinkPeace, Astig, Banjonates, and Mediation Services, and most excited to bring in the circles in. Thank you very much. And I have engaged in bringing this piece and work together. And if you're voting, my vote will be yes, as our chair represents us to take this again to the council if we decide to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And just to kind of go back, like with the budget thing, I think all the points that Mohammed made were really, really important and pertinent. And also, I think it's really important to note that this money has been sitting there since 2 years. So like that's another thing. They haven't done anything with this $1 million that's allocated for Black Lives Matter. And one thing I think I've learned, especially in being so heavily involved in this process with the facilitator, like team combination, all of you guys, has been watching how much you guys have how much thought you guys have put into every single aspect of this. When people like before, we even heard like the circles thing, it's kind of weird. I'm like, just hang on, guys. Like they're talking to someone like behind the scenes. Like I know it doesn't make sense right now, but like they're connecting to people, like, and so I want to make sure that it's known that like you guys, we all took this so seriously. I don't know how many hours of Zooms you guys and I have had. There's a reason why Larry is Lair Bear to me, and I can say how yummy Angie's husband is. And it's because of all of the time we've spent together. So I appreciate all of the work that you guys have put into this. And I want you guys to be prepared for all of the details that you're going to be asked in regards to that price point. I'm going to be very frank. I think that you should get yourself ready for some harsh criticism, some hard questions. I have 1,000,000% faith in you guys, but I got my flame burned out once last year. Right, Laura? And I don't want it to happen again. So with that, oh, Daphne, you want to go ahead and you can go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So I just want to clarify, what is not on the table this evening is the matter of stipends, which if we have a facilitator, I think the conversation around that issue would probably change. So I want to clarify stipend. We're not talking about stipends this evening. And this is not directly connected to the Excluded Workers Fund. And I don't know if this is a question that anyone at this meeting could answer, but it is one that we may want answered. Is this something where if the facilitator is granted that the money for the excluded workers fund, like, is there any way that money will be taken out of the
No.
money?
No, nope,
Okay.
no way. That's virtually illegal. Actually, it's illegal. No way that that money would ever be in the same near accounts or have people running it. Nothing whatsoever.
Okay, and then this is not about stipends, that's not on the table.
Nope, it is not. You are correct on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
This is Commissioner Johnson. I just would like to also say, once again, we all volunteer for this. And stipends, that's nice, but that's not exactly what the bigger picture is. And we need to focus and make sure that we make this work. And I would like to do whatever it takes that in the right direction, period. I yield with that.
Okay. Are you guys ready to answer that, like, those tons and tons of questions before we go over this consultant agreement and kind of make some edits to it? Larry?
I'm happy to speak to, yes, Vice Chair, I'm happy to try to answer questions. I do want to clarify, though, procedurally, and maybe Stephanie Bowers can help here. I just want to understand what the TRC might be voting on. I think that we understood you all to be voting to recommend to council that they, whether or not to recommend to council that they move forward with us to determine terms of an agreement. So just wanted to clarify if that was the case.
That is,
So I think, to answer your question, I mean, they would be recommending to city council to recommend you for the proposal.
Right,
But
right.
when they decide to vote on it this evening, I will point them back to the agreement that was done back in September to just make sure that it's understood that if there's something about the proposal today or something that they disagree with in what was presented today, then, you know, that would be part of that agreement.
Of course.
Go in front of council. So they just need to take that into consideration when they vote. So that's
Absolutely.
primarily- Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie. Wanted to circle up to, is Commissioner Harris still in the room?
No, but it would definitely be helpful if you would still answer.
Is that Commissioner Johnson? I'm sorry, I'm only seeing
Yes,
two faces.
Commissioner.
Commissioner Johnson, I want to just tell Commissioner Harris, if he's listening, that your time is valuable and maybe even more than mine is. I'm unfortunately not in a position to do something directly other than to facilitate, as someone mentioned, a strategic planning process and a work plan process so that you all may present afresh any change in the way that your money can be spent, the money that's been allocated to the TRC. And rest assured, I hear you loudly and clearly that your time is as valuable as anyone's and perhaps more than mine. Commissioner Daniel, I don't think had a question other than about the excluded workers fund, and I think Vice Chair Ali took that one. Commissioner Johnson, I think that your questions were answered, but just to confirm, the budgetary amount is meant to, be sort of a cap that we would not exceed, and that we only would be compensated based on the actual time and services performed. And so it very likely could be a different final amount based on either some of our work being offloaded to others in the community or us just not doing some of the work we had proposed doing here. That'll all come out, I think, in the strategic and work planning process. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely,
All
definitely.
right, thank you.
Only one other thing, if
Yes, sir.
this does not pass with the city, what is going to be our next plan for that after that? That's all. Just something to think about.
I think Commissioner Dillard also had asked about the itemized budget.
Yes, Yes, no, I was going to get to that next, but Commissioner Johnson, I'm afraid I don't know the answer to the question you just asked. That's probably something that you all have to decide as a TRC, and the city council and city manager would have to decide. As it relates to Commissioner Dillard, thank you for the questions you asked. And so I'm going to attempt to go through, as you put it, sort of an itemized list of the things that are encompassed by it. I see a question also from Mr. Jones in the chat that I'll try to come back to if that's okay. So Commissioner Dillard, for the portion of the, and matter of fact, it might be best if I reshare the slide that has the overview. Can you all see the budget overview slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the strategic and work plan research, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to advance. The strategic and work plan research and project management. This is the kind of project where we would anticipate needing to be in very frequent contact with both the TRC members, the TRC leadership, and city staff. And so we've allocated enough time to ensure that we can meet very regularly to ensure that we're all on the same page with where things are headed, and that we can put the preparation into design and then facilitate a meaningful retreat, a meaningful workshop, so that you can come away with a strategic and work plan. As you may know, those kinds of things often take multiple days, even months, and we're hoping that we can abbreviate that a considerable amount. But we did want to make sure we had enough resources to be able to thoughtfully plan out how a workshop like that would go, to make highest and best use of your time, and to make sure that all that we needed to do to ensure we have enough background information on this work can be completed in advance as well. So it accounts for the preparations for and the facilitation of and the follow-on from the strategic and work planning retreat, as well as ongoing coordination and project management that is, in this particular case, we think pretty high, just because of how many people need to be coordinated with, if I can end a sentence with a preposition. On the design of the fact-finding and truth-telling process, I think that one of the things that is very much a hallmark of Eduardo Gonzalez's approach to this is that he not, or that a small number of us not sit in some room and design a process, but that it be directly informed by the particular needs of the audience that is trying to be reached. And so that necessitates things like interviews conducted with either individuals or community organizations, in person and door-to-door visits. We call them fact-finding, but you could call it canvassing. In other words, just a way to go and meet people who might not have the inclination or the resources to be involved in an organization that we would otherwise touch, but who we could meet in the process of walking the community and get some input that way. Develop the plan for diversity markets and a way for those markets to be leveraged both as an outreach tool and as a way for us to collect information for the TRC. Designing the overall process for training community volunteers and getting that training in place so that we can multiply our forces a considerable amount. So it's essentially a multi-pronged way of ensuring that any public events are done with a very careful eye towards what this community wants, and I think the Chair Traore's and others' point earlier, what they will attend. What will lower, if not eliminate, the barriers to their participating, because we know those barriers exist no matter what happens. Anytime you call a public meeting, you're likely to encounter barriers to participation, and so we want to make sure we've done a very deep dive with the Iowa City community in every fashion possible, without privileging technology or the ability to drive to a meeting, and make sure we understand what this community is after. On the fact-finding and truth-telling, that's, in this particular case, the one that has the most detail. But that line item includes the training of community members to be statement takers. It includes the coordination of all the logistics for the in-person events. It includes the actual day of hosting for the large in-person events. And again, we put 4 of those into the budget because we just thought that might be suitable, but it could be fewer, it could be more. It includes the time and personnel for the circle events. and for the diversity markets, and a small amount of time for an after action report, because it's critical that as the TRC is going along, we don't just wait until some end point to give you a sense of what your community is telling you, but that we prepare that report, and that the community sees that they are being heard. That report would be publicly available. So that's what's encompassed by the third item. On the fourth item, I think I talked about this a little bit more, but this imagines 6 hours of TRC meeting time per month, spread out over a couple of days, with 1 meeting a month over the course of a year-long period. And of course, that schedule could be adjusted. It does include the work of developing a meeting strategy, proposed agendas, presentation materials, meeting with the project team and other individuals to coordinate anything that needs to be prepared for a TRC meeting. There might be a panel or a guest speaker or the like. Obviously, the facilitation itself, including setup and teardown, and then reporting out with summaries and minutes for you all in conjunction with Stephanie and others. Again, that item does take into account the possibility for travel. It may be that we come to the conclusion that the level of travel we've laid out in the budget is higher than necessary, but we understood the meetings to be resuming in person, and we wanted to make sure we accounted for that. And then the report compilation is essentially the task of going through all of the information gathered by the TRC and all of the information produced by the TRC over the course of their meetings and preparing a narrative. This would certainly, in our opinion, be done best as a collaborative effort with TRC commissioners directly. But given the amount of time that you're already going to be spending in meetings and at public events, we just wanted to make sure we were positioned to spend the requisite amount of time at least drafting sections of the document for your review and edit. And certainly if there were commissioners who wanted to be part of that process, or take it over, we're fine with that. But we wanted to make sure we were in a position to help drive that, because the report is oh so critical, as well as the specific recommendations. Commissioner Diller, was a great question. I don't know if I've done it justice. Is there anything else I can help you with on that one?
Oh, that was great. Thank you so much. I understand now.
Of course, of course. Let's see, I think LV had to step away. Thanks to them for coming. Mr. Jones asked if there was a base to the budget, and I think I know what that means, but if I'm off on this, please correct me. Really, this is a budget that would have to be considered once we've determined the tasks that the TRC truly wants us to have, and it will also be subject to change as the process moves forward based on, we're having these meetings. I think we could afford to meet a little less, or enough events we don't need to plan more, or whatever the particulars of that would be. So I'd hesitate to say there's a base. I mean, we certainly would want to start with the work of coming to Iowa City and conducting that planning process. So I suppose that's sort of the baseline is getting there and getting that level of pre-work done. But absent that, there's really not a floor so much as there is kind of a template, a suite of possibilities, if you will, for us to undertake on the commission's behalf, and then we can ascertain what of that would be most needed. Councilmember Alter on the chat says, what would be the timeline for the strategic and work planning? I certainly think that we would like that to happen as quickly as we can once we have, if we are able to get notice to proceed. Once we have that, I mean, I think we would want to try to identify, if we could, some summer dates and carry that work out as quickly as we could. And I would also say, Councilmember, that we would strive to make it as light of a meeting lift as possible, and try to encourage some pre-work and maybe some in-between meeting work, so that the commissioners wouldn't, get too tired from extra time, or have to make too many extraordinary schedule sacrifices or other sacrifices to be part of it. But I think we would strive to get the ball rolling on that as soon as we have notice to proceed, get it scheduled as quickly as possible thereafter, come to town, do those meetings, and then within, say, a month's time, be able to produce a plan for the TRC to review and or approve. So I hope that's helpful. And commissioners, I believe that I've covered what was asked, but please let me know if I've missed anybody with a question or comment.
It's appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to share that
Yeah, sure.
consult agreement so that we can do what you were talking about?
Well, I think based upon the conversation, I mean, just so that everybody understands when you move to item number 7, that this is the previous agreement that has went in front of City Council that did not pass back in September of last year. And so what you would be approving today is the, looks like, I think Redmond has his hand raised, but I'll finish real quick. But it would be taking, you know, the information from the slides and kind of reinserting it into the scopes of services. And so, again, just reminding everyone that the information that was discussed today, along with the details within the slide deck, would be what Kearns and West and the others will work with the city attorney's office and kind of compiling into a document to go in front of city council. You know, and there would be other changes when you look at the timeline, obviously. It was discussed that this would go for a year from now. So you're looking, you know, so those timelines would change too. So it would be May of 2023. So, but just so you're mindful of that when you vote. So basically, if there's something that you have a concern with, then you would need to address it at this time.
I see a comment in chat. I don't know if commissioners, it's appropriate to read it. It's from Mr. Jones. Or if Mr. Jones would be recognized, I defer to you all.
Response, would it be possible to get a price for the initial assessment? Initial assessment, and once the scope is detailed from the meeting, a second phase be presented to the council. I mean, you could, yeah, Larry, you can answer that.
Vice Chair, yeah, I mean, I would say perhaps it's something that I'd have to discuss with the team in more depth, but I would definitely recommend that we do as much as we can to define the ways we think the facilitation team is going to support this work. And we can always make modifications to our tasks so long as we're, you know, able to stay within the allotted budget. So it certainly is possible, I suppose, but I would prefer, if possible, that we come to an understanding about the work we will do in total. And then we can certainly come back after the strategic and work planning session and say, here's some adjustments that we've made to that. Here's some projections as to how that might play out in the budget. Again, we do a time and materials process in most cases, rather than any sort of flat fee or some such. So there would be no obligation from the TRC or Iowa City until we had, you know, agreed in writing on exactly what we'll do. And then we would only be invoicing and requesting payment upon completion of that work.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say from my standpoint, from having dealt with everything from the beginning to now, that I would not agree with that being our strategy of moving things forward, especially just because of how things have gone in the past, even before Redmond was in Iowa City. Is there anyone else that has any other comments?
I just wanted to say, I think it'd be good for the record to clarify which you don't agree with.
Yeah, could we read it out?
Oh, yeah.
Like, no, I mean, like which standpoint you don't agree with, the 2 phases or the one?
Yes, I do not agree with the 2 phases. The question was, based on your response, would it be possible to get a price for the initial assessment? And once the scope is detailed from that meeting, a second phase be presented to the council. And I am just clarifying that because of everything that I've been through, that doesn't seem like it would be a good way to move forward. Yes, so that's my initial thoughts on it. Are you guys ready to move on? Or do you want to discuss more? Go ahead.
The only thing I have to say is that I feel like if we can solve a lot of problems if we start right here. So.
Yeah.
Okay. My only hesitation is, like I said, is just making sure that it is detailed enough so that people fully understand. So I hope moving forward, we can have that, as I've been saying, itemized so that there won't be the questions of what is being spent. I do appreciate the explanation, but I anticipate there is going to be people coming up in arms again about this.
Is that Commissioner Dillard?
Yes.
Yeah, Commissioner Dillard, I just wanted to affirm that and tell you that, you know, I can't prejudge what might go into the professional services agreement that we hopefully get amended, but my hope would be that everything I recited to you would go into that agreement, so that it would be, you know, available for folks to understand exactly what it is that we are intending to do in the way of services.
And then for clarification purposes, because we all know that when it comes to this lawyery stuff, I get really confused. It's not our job to go over this and do, like, this is something Kearns and West is gonna do with your legal team for the city, right? Assuming we vote.
That's the way it's currently. I mean, that's kind of part of their proposal that you would be agreeing to, because that's one of the things that they state on one of the slides is that if you approve the proposal, then they would work with the city attorney's office in putting together an agreement that's reflective of the proposal.
So that would be this.
So it would not be the agreement. You're approving the proposal that will be reflected in the agreement. The agreement, I mean, you could have approved an agreement, certainly, but that, you know, that's not how it was presented, so.
Yeah, and if I could, Stephanie, I would characterize the agreement as just memorializing in writing everything we've talked about here. So as long as the TRC is comfortable at the conceptual level with everything we've shared, then we'll make sure that in our work with the city manager and the city attorney, that that's all reflected in the written document that the council would vote to approve.
Okay, and yeah, and that would be the document that council sees. So it's not gonna be like council seeing these slides and council seeing the, okay, perfect.
I mean, we could make a presentation to city council, obviously, but
Okay.
you know, it would be the professional services agreement, yes.
Perfect. Okay, I just wanted to make sure on that front because I was like, am I gonna have to make this and put ThinkPeace and everything into these parts and fill the bubbles? So,
No.
all right, we're golden pony boys. Yeah, are you guys ready to move on to the next agenda item?
Yes.
Yay! What's the next agenda item? Discussion and vote. Oh my gosh. Wow, I'm gonna cry. This has been since November. All right, is there anything that you guys want to discuss about this?
I don't really have discussion point, just want to give a big thank you to the entire group for all the work that you have put into this. To Stephanie as well for conducting so much of this correspondence,
Thank you.
email
Very
stuff.
kind. Thank you.
Angui as well for stepping in. You had stepped in at some point, but I especially want to thank Vice Chair Amel here. I've had so little to do with this since November that it's not even funny. She's pretty much taken all of this on. So thank you for doing that. Really helped me do more with my actual job, which was nice because I feel like just doing a lot better compared to where I was in the fall. So I just thank you so much for taking this on and really leading the charge and being our leader through this time. But that's all I have on it.
And then I appreciate that, Mohammed. I'm like so weird and emotional. Oh, this is weird. I don't like this, but I wanted to say that I appreciate like Larry and company for putting up with me for the last few months. Some weird and fun Zooms. And also lots of weird questions. So I appreciate you guys for everything you've taught me, invaluable stuff. But I do have a question that I forgot to ask earlier. And this is something that we can kind of think about And this kind of goes with, I think I told you guys a long time ago when I was working on like a logo for us, but like I'm not artistic at all. But if this gets passed and approved, and then let's say council approves it, is there something that we could do within TRC at the diversity market, like have our logo on something, or like, you know, like something kind of like that, just so that we can get our name out there more. I want it to be affiliated with that as well. So that's just, I'm planting a little seed in Angie's garden in her head there. But
I think that's the
yeah.
underlying, I think that's the underlying intent, Vice Chair, of Angie's being a part of this. So
Well,
not to
yeah.
speak for her, but
But yeah, if nobody else wants to make a comment, then I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to.
I just want to add, because I already made my my comments on number 6. So all that and if you see me looking, I'm just looking in Commissioner Traore's laptop to see you guys who are up there. So I just want to add that on the question of the budget, I recognize that some of the money may look like somebody may think, and I'm being this will come again from the questions, that it may look like it's going directly into some of the individual pockets, but we know it's going to the actual work. And we also know, and I recognize a lot of the work you have been doing so far, it has been voluntary even to get to this point. And there's also a lot of voluntary work and unpaid work that you will continue doing that is not even included in the money that is there. That being said, I will stop myself because I have a lot of words that come out of me. I'll stop there and just repeat, thank you for all of you and working with you and engaging to get to this point.
I am going to make a motion to vote yes on the facilitator proposal.
Second. Commissioner Johnson, second.
Commissioner Ali made the motion.
It's been properly moved and seconded to recommend to the city council the proposal from Kearns and West in cooperation with local entities. Any further discussion? Okay. Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathua,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 6-0. Oh, and Traore, sorry.
Also, yes. 7-0.
My bad.
All good, all good.
All right. Next we have announcements from staff. And does anyone here have any announcements?
The only thing I want to add here is thank you everyone for attending. Also just want to apologize for a little disagreement earlier. If anyone felt disrespected by my comments personally, I'm sorry. Just wanted to make sure that we did not continue on that conversation at this time. And the last thing I want to add is just that thank you everyone that even comes to these meetings or listens to these things, is definitely going to need you when it comes time to get this thing passed. And especially going to need the media to make sure that when you're writing these stories on what this commission does, and especially what's going to happen at these city council meetings, be sure it's balanced and be sure that the viewpoints of the commissioners are actually properly addressed. Because a lot of people are not going to show up at that meeting. Most people, the first time they will even know this thing still exists is when they read your articles. So if we're completely mischaracterized, or if we are made as the bullies or the bad people in every single paper, that is what everyone will know us as, and that is how everyone will treat us. So just be sure that you are fair and balanced in the reporting. That I yield.
I have a kind of, well, this is sad. Our country hates women and doesn't want them to have their own body autonomy. And so right now I'm actually preaching to the straight men in the room, preaching to the cis men in the room. Don't just post memes, talk to people about it. You probably know someone, you probably love someone who's had an abortion. 1 in 4 women have. Give money to abortion funds, give money to clinics that provide contraceptive care and emergency contraceptives. Give your friends with uteruses money, but don't just sit and be quiet while the government tries to tell us what we can and can't do with our bodies, because this affects everyone. And I think we really need to take this seriously. And it's got to start with straight men making other straight men uncomfortable. And with that, I yield to the floor. Motion to adjourn.
I
Sorry.
just want to thank the city for paying for the cause with the the cause that I've just got done with the truth telling project for the last 7 weeks. I'm glad it happened as we were moving towards today's meeting and this point, because it has really, though painful, triggering and all that, it has been a very educative 7 weeks. Thank you, city, for paying for that. I yield the floor.
This is Commissioner Johnson. We just need to get things done. I think we have an opportunity right now to make a huge difference and change the lives of a lot of people in a positive way. And on top of that, why not? The city needs to help us do it. We need to get this done. We've already said it. We've done a lot of talking about it. Let's get it done. That I yield.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Peace.
Thank you.